What's up, my friends? How's it going today? I got my fancy hairdo. I'm all ready to go. Big old beard. Can be professional. Nice background. Definitely set to go. I wanted to make this video to dispel a couple myths about bacteria, the human body, as well as to educate people about a few things that I find are really important. First off, there's a statistic that's been going around, and it's one that I've actually presented a few times, which is that there are 10 times more bacteria in your body than your own cells. And I dug into that a little deeper and found several places citing that. That was from a 1977 research paper, I believe. But nobody was really questioning it, and more recent studies have put the number at more about 30 million or 30 trillion of your own cells to about 40 trillion bacteria. So we're still outweighed by bacteria. It doesn't have to be 10 to 1. And we're way outnumbered by actual DNA. So we have up to 10 times more foreign DNA in our bodies than we do our natural own DNA. And I find this fascinating. This is tied into, I'm in the process of starting a group of people, like-minded people who want to do research on these things and to post really true information, not people that just want to go, oh yeah, that's cool or that's neat, but people that really want to dig and research. And it's hard to find people who want to do the research. You know, everybody wants to be a part of something, but it's different to actually put in the work, because it's daunting to look up these things, because we're at the mercy of all the research we've done, or that other people have done, and as to how deep we're willing to dig. So I took a couple notes here for myself. I'll try to pick through to find some of my points. I was studying about prokaryotes and eukaryotes, which are, a prokaryote is a cell with no nucleus, and eukaryotes are cells with a nucleus and DNA. And I think something that's fascinating to me is, say, viruses, they don't have any way to make or reproduce, so they have to hijack a cell to actually do it. And what we found is that there are about 80 to 20 good to bad bacteria in your body, and by the lifestyle choices we're making, there's a really revealing study they did on a building where they closed all the windows on one level and not on the other level, because the new way of being green is to, make a completely energy efficient home. And many of these buildings have air filtration systems which never allow outside bacteria to come in, which was always thought to be a good thing. Come to find out that as people walk in, they're losing like 30 million or 3 million bacteria per, I think it was like 30 to 60 million bacteria per hour when you're in a building. And these are usually bad bacteria because they're on your body. And you're more likely to, let's just say that through sneezing and touching things, we know what happens. Look at what happens with MRSA in hospitals. It's become scary to go to a hospital, and it should be the cleanest place. So we're learning a lot, and we're finding that we were wrong about antibacterial soap. It's horrible. And we were also wrong about antibiotics. They can be very useful for a person who is dying from something and really needs an antibiotic because they have a bad bacteria in their body. But if you've got a person who is just taking it for a root canal, they prescribe it for that after they do oral surgery or anything. They'll just prescribe it as just in case kind of measure. And every time I've been prescribed it, I just let it sit around and never take it and end up throwing it out. And people are always like, you should take your medication. And I'm really resistant and skeptical about antibiotics. I'm glad that I was, because I've only taken them, I think, one time. And you can get very sick afterwards. Your body uses the good bacteria to fill in the gaps so the bad bacteria can't come in there. Think of it as a turf war. That's how I heard it described. When bad bacteria come in and there's nobody to stop them, they can wreak havoc on your body. But if you have your natural bacteria in there to take care of business, they will come in and kick some ass, so to speak. And what I've actually heard suggested was that some of the bacteria may be training our immune cells to fight others. In other words, there's a training process going on. There's an assistance there. So humans could not live without bacteria in our bodies. We would die. We wouldn't even exist. We never would have even gotten to this point or evolved. To think that the human cell system is capable of producing everything on its own, and that's kind of the mentality people have had forever, that bacteria were bad. Now we're finding out that they outweigh us, plentiful. And this goes along with the research I was doing on various fungi and bacteria that alter the behavior of creatures, such as the Toxoplasma gondii, which infects rats and forces them to not be scared of cats. But they're still scared of the light, they're still scared of open spaces, they still have the regular precautions, they're just friendly to cats. That's why the cat will eat them, and it will pass it on through their feces so they can reproduce in the intestinal tract of the cat. But just like the caterpillar fungus, the orthocordyceps, or ophiocordyceps, which actually tells the ant to go through the jungle, climb up onto a leaf 25 centimeters above the ground, bite in, and then die, so the cordyceps can reproduce. If these compounds, simple compounds like this, or fungal spores, can have the intelligence to know how to do these things and to change the mind of a creature, then why wouldn't these things be affecting us as humans? Which is why this is so fascinating. And there have even been suggestions that people who that lack of certain bacteria can cause gut problems, which can lead to schizophrenia. And that's still in the early stages of study, but it's pretty fascinating, because I was thinking that perhaps certain behavioral traits are brought on by things we just don't understand and cannot understand yet, because this is like a 10-year-old study. I mean, if you look at how long people have been talking about gut bacteria, it goes back less than 10 years, and now it's just everywhere. And so here's what was interesting. The original thing I read was that there's 80 trillion cells in the body, and then I read another study that said there was 10, and then there was the bacteria that was said to be 800 trillion, and then some people said it was 80. The new study found that 30 trillion cells and 40 trillion bacteria in our body, and most of them are in the digestive tract. And for those who aren't aware of this, various compounds are produced by these bacteria, and that probiotics are, the idea is to help to supplement some of these good bacteria that we need, which help to determine our mood. Depression can be caused by bad gut bacteria. Anxiety can be caused by bad gut bacteria. When I had anxiety and depression, I should have known better. It really is about the food. But the mentality and what we're told is that it's not about, we say that it's not about the food itself. We say, well, it's not about the food, it's about the nutrients. So we find ourselves taking supplements and thinking that, well, this has the calcium, magnesium, and a little protein, drink a quick protein shake and I'm good to go. If you're gonna use a protein or a smoothie mix, make sure that if that's going to be a meal, that it's shown to be a full meal, a full serving meal, including probiotics and various enzymes. These are all important building blocks. I can live off of smoothies and I feel generally great, but if I don't get the right bacteria in my gut, it's always something I assumed, well, you just need to eat to feel good, but there's so much more to it than that. It's fascinating. They say that in bacteria there's 500 to 1,000 species in the human body. The article I read, I think, said that they had originally discovered like 118 or something and then went to like 250, but they're assuming there are at least 500 and probably many more. And 10% of those predominate. So 10% of those 500 species, so 50 different bacteria, are the main active bacteria in our body. 50 bacteria are very significant, but 500 is very significant. Different kinds that are working in different places. You've got them in your liver, you've got them in your heart, you've probably got them in your brain. Every single part of your body has bacteria working in conjunction with our own cells. That is fascinating to me. This reveals a whole new line of thinking about what consciousness really is, and whether we're just walking bacteria bags. If single-celled organisms evolved first, why wouldn't they evolve a transportation system for them to get around? Now consider this. Follow with me for a minute, because this is kind of out there, but I've had this theory for a while, and I made a video last year about this, that maybe sometime in ancient history there was a consciousness among bacteria. In other words, they had decided that they would create an evolutionary pattern to, and I'm not saying that they created evolution or that they're God, but rather that the bacteria know that they have to work with the creatures that they live within in order to function. They can't consume the whole animal, they can't destroy the animal, but if they're not careful, the animal may destroy them. So they have to work in conjunction with the different foods that the animals eat and the different behaviors they have, the temperatures they live in. And that's another important one. The bacteria that we have in our bodies are often we get into trouble because we have a consistent temperature. Not only are our houses closed all the time, but we're not letting in the bad bacteria from outside, which was the main problem with that building thing I was talking about. But they're not letting the good bacteria in from outside, but they are letting the bad bacteria in from the people. But when we have our houses all closed up and sterilized, it's a perfect breeding ground for bacteria that thrive in those conditions. So it's not about eliminating it. We try to be too clean. We try to wipe our babies down and make sure they're sanitary. Don't do it. Don't worry about your kids getting sick through germs, because bacteria is something that is everywhere. They're finding now that children that are born with C-section may not get some of the bacteria from the woman's vaginal, canal, why can't I think of this? Birth canal. As they're coming out of the birth canal and they get they get coated with whatever the slime, you might call it, is just loaded with bacteria, which kickstarts their own natural bacterial colonies. And most people who are brothers, sisters, siblings, related, have similar bacterial colonies, but we each have our very own individual system. Our bacteria are as individual as our looks and our behaviors, and probably much of our behavior is influencing those. But the question is, are many of those influencing our behavior too? Are they causing us to walk around? Oh, before I lose track, the thing about the birth is that now they're doing what they call vaginal swabs, where they're actually swabbing the baby down after a C-section. Now, both of my youngest were born through C-section, and we didn't know about that. Nobody had heard about that. But it's also given to the kids through breastfeeding, which is a huge concern, because many parents are actually using nothing but, the fake, I can't remember, formula. Sorry, it's been a couple of years. But we used formula when we had to, but my kids breastfed as much as possible. And I'm glad that they did, and I'm glad that I did. And they always told you, breastfeeding builds immunity. But did they tell you why? Nobody really asks, well, how does drinking milk affect your immune system? Well, good bacteria. Good bacteria enter your body and start to work and train this body how to function. That's something that I hadn't even thought about yet, which just blew my own mind. I'm just like, you're introduced to all these bacteria when you're young, and your body's fragile, and these bacteria come in and say, all right, this is how you guys can work, and this is how you guys should work. The body has its own blueprint for functioning, but without these bacteria, we just cannot live. And that, to me, is a fascinating thing. So bacteria are your friend. Don't forget that. I'll talk to y'all later, and keep on researching.